Good morning, class.
Good morning, Miss.
Today's lesson, we will be looking at resources. So, by the end of today's lesson, you will know what are the types of resources and how to define resources. As well, you should be able to tell me where we can find these different types of resources. Understood?
Yes, Miss.
Now, looking at the board, what can you tell me about resources? What do you know of the term? Go ahead.
These resources are their materials that man used to make life easier.
Go ahead.
These resources are natural materials from the
So you're both correct. Who else has something different?
Resources are anything useful to
Anything useful to man. Good. So we have that ongoing theme of resources being something that is particularly useful to man, right? Now, let me give you a definition of what I would like you to know. So, in your books, you have my heading. What are resources?
Yes.
Resources are the living. Resources are the living. Resources are the living and the non-living. Resources are the living and the non-living things that can be developed. Resources are the living and the non-living things that can be developed and made useful by man. Full stop. Resources are the living and the non-living things that can be developed and made useful by man. Full stop. Now that we have that definition, what can you remember of the types of resources? How many are there? First question. There are two types of resources. That's correct. Now, who can name me two? Okay, so renewable and non-renewable resources, that's actually a lesson for another day. So there are two main types. You're not wrong, but I'm looking for another one. Natural and human, that's correct. Now, what do you know of natural resources? Do you know the other name it goes by?
This natural resources are also known as non-human resources.
Non-human resources, is he correct?
Yes.
Good. Now, why do you think we call it non-human resources?
is because it's not living.
So it's not man-made, right? Now, what are some natural resources we can find here in Guyana? Go ahead.
Timber.
Timber. What else?
This minerals such as diamond,
Minerals such as diamonds, bauxite, gold. Go ahead.
water,
Water,
This crop like sugarcane and rice.
sugarcane, and rice. Those are some excellent examples of natural resources. Now, so let's look at our second heading, natural or physical resources. Now, before we get further down into the lesson, looking at the map of Guyana's natural region that I have here, where do you think we're more likely to find natural resources in Guyana? Shall the answer? So we have the highland regions and the hilly sand and clay. What resources is found in the hilly sand and clay? Sand, and bauxite. Go ahead. White sand.
This timber such as green heart.
Okay. So you giving me the answer for another question. So we're looking specifically at resources we find within this region, the hilly sand and clay region. Okay? The answer that you provided, we can find it within where? Good. So go ahead. All right. So what are some resources we may find in the forested regions of Guyana? Gold, timber,
Purple hat.
purple heart. We can find oil. Can we find oil within this region?
I don't think so.
So we're going to find oil where? Off the coast of the low coastal plain. Okay? That was a good one that you brought to my attention. Where? Yes, those are some excellent types of wood that we produce here in Guyana. Now that you know to name the types of natural resources, what can you say? What can you say they are really? How would you define natural resources?
Miss, no resources were created by nature.
Resources created by nature, resources that we find around us that are not man-made. So you're both correct. Now take down this definition that you should know. These are resources. These are resources that have developed naturally. These are resources that have developed naturally. These are resources that have developed naturally and without the interference of man. And without the interference of man. Full stop. Now, what do you think they mean by this? By that definition? Are all resources found in nature? Can they all be classified as natural resources? Why not? Go ahead.
Because natural resources are mostly found outdoors, and man-made resources are like lab-grown stuff.
All right, go. You're on the right track. So that is what we're looking for. Now we know sometimes we have some vegetables. They don't occur naturally in nature. They're hybrids or they've been farmed in such a way that they only grow to suit our needs. Now those we don't classify as natural resources. They may be they may be a natural resource in the sense that they come from the earth, but they do not occur naturally, right? So science helped to make them that way. Do you understand that? Good. So let's continue. Examples include examples include now further examples include put a colon and eight you're going to list eight types of resources we are able to find naturally. Okay? And try to limit them to things we may find in Guyana. So you're listing eight types of natural resources we are able to find in Guyana. Actual natural resources. Like land, for instance, that's a natural resource, right? Land, water, and we listed some earlier. Go ahead. That is a natural resource.
These also sugar cane concept.
Those are natural resources. So after you finish with that exercise, you're going to share with me what you would have written. You can do it. Let's give it a minute for the others, right?
Finish.
Who's finished? Okay, I'm going to give the others 2 more minutes. So who's ready to share? Alright. Let me see someone who hasn't spoken yet. Anna, share with us 2 natural resources you believe can be found in Guyana. So she has bauxite and timber. She's correct, right? Go ahead. Crude oil and diamonds, water and land, flora and fauna,
Miss bauxite and timber.
bauxite and timber.
Yes, miss.
Go ahead. Last one.
Miss stone.
Sand and stone. Good. So you have provided excellent examples of natural resources. Go ahead.
Is petroleum considered a mineral?
Is
Petroleum considered a mineral?
it is considered a natural resource.
It's a mineral?
It's not a mineral, it's oil. He's correct. Clay? Can you classify clay as a natural resource? What does the class
Yes,
think?
it is useful.
It is useful, and we do find it in the Kyrgyzstan and clay region.
So
Okay.
yes.
So yes,
Does that fruits be classified as natural?
fruits. Yes, they are. But we usually label fruits and vegetables on the flora and fauna. Good. Now, before we move on to human resources, we have to look at the classifications of natural or physical resources. Good. So we're looking at the classifications of natural resources. Now, could you tell me what the classifications are? Someone listed them before. Can you remember what the 2 are? Go ahead. Very good. So, class, what are the 2 classifications of natural resources?
Renewable and non-renewable.
Very good. So, if now on the exam I ask you to list the 2 types of resources we have, what are the 2 types you're naming?
Natural and renewable.
Very good. And if I ask you for 2 classifications of resources, what would you name?
Renewable and non-renewable.
Very good. Now, you have your 3rd heading, classifications of resources.
Yes, yes.
Good. Let's continue. Now, why do you believe we classify natural resources into renewable and non-renewable?
It's because some can be replaced and some can't.
Because some natural resources can be replaced and some cannot. Good. Go ahead. Okay, so everyone share the same idea that we classify natural resources into renewable and non-renewable because some can be replaced and others cannot. Now, we listed some earlier. What do you believe are some types of renewable resources we have in Guyana? Diana? Water. Why do you say water is a renewable resource?
because water is always there. You can get it all the time.
Good. So we have a process called the water cycle, right? That renews our oceans and seas. So water is readily available to us. What other types of renewable resources do we have? Yes, go ahead. Sand. Why would you say sand is a renewable resource?
Miss, it kind of reproduces somehow.
It kind of reproduces somehow. All right. Trees. Trees are renewable resources. Okay, so let's continue with a definition. Natural or physical resources. Natural or physical resources can be classified in several ways. Natural and physical resources can be classified into several ways. What are the ways we named?
Renewable and
Good. There are colon. There are colon. And you're going to list the two classifications for me. Do you know how to spell that?
Yes,
Yes,
miss.
miss.
Good. So we know them as renewable and non-renewable resources. Can you guess the other name we have for them? So just like how natural resources can also be called physical resources, renewable and non-renewable resources can also be called exhaustible and inexhaustible resources. So make a note of that. So on next to renewable, write exhaustible, capital EXHAUSIBLE. So next to renewable, you're putting exhaustible, and next to non-renewable, we put inexhaustible. Spelled the same way, but with IN at the front. Good. So if on your exam, you can either put renewable or exhaustible, either one is correct, or you can put non-renewable or inexhaustible resources, right? So whichever term you would like to use, they're both correct. Good. So before we go on, you're going to list some types of renewable and non-renewable resources for me in your book.
How many more?
That's your activity. So for renewable, you list 5, and non-renewable, you list another 5. So you should provide me with 10 examples in total. So list 5 renewable and 5 non-renewable resources we may find in Guyana.
Mrs. Irwa?
So can you say air is a renewable resource? Correct. Go ahead. It is a resource. It's naturally produced.
And it's come back.
How we say
It's
minerals are
resourceful.
non-renewable?
You could use it again.
Does it taste like millions of years to come back?
What?
Minerals like diamonds and gold.
So they are renewable, meaning they are naturally formed in the earth, and even though it takes a very long process for them to renew, we can classify them as renewable. Because that's a finite resource. Once we use it up, it's gone. So, yes, there is a bit of discourse about whether some minerals are renewable and some are not. Can you say if gold is renewable? Okay, so non renewable resources, those, whatever minerals you would like to list, they would fall on the non renewable resources. Okay? So minerals and oil, they're non-renewable because they take a very long time to come back. I made a mistake there. Okay? So renewable resources are resources which we can get back over a short period of time. So air is a renewable resource, right? Water is a renewable resource. What are some other renewable resources?
Stone. Rocks. Stone
The
and rock.
sun.
Mist.
I want put the sun as a renewable resource because it's always there.
Mist, what about rock?
So rocks, those are non-renewable because they take a course of years to form. Go ahead. Flora and fauna. Would you say trees are renewable or non-renewable?
Renewable.
Why so?
Mist because they grow back.
They grow back and they might take what? How many years?
A year?
Good. So you can list forests and trees under renewable. Go ahead. Would you say sunlight is a renewable resource? Why? But some persons can argue that the sun is always there. Exactly, we cannot get it back. So remember, the sun is a burning star, right? It's slowly dying. So over a course of 1,000,000 years, the sun will eventually go out. Good. So you have to be specific. So he's saying that the sunlight is renewable, but the sun itself. Good. So you would be correct. Sunlight is renewable. It depends what kind of energy. Would you say sand is renewable? What? Glass?
Glass is basically liquid sand.
Why would you say sand is renewable? Do you know the process?
No.
I'm not sure what it's called, but I know the sun like expands or something. No, that's not it.
Okay, so by now you have your 5 examples of renewable and non-renewable resources. Who's still working? Go ahead. So some animals are. No, we're talking about animals that we eat. What type of animals are renewable resources? We don't eat whales. So look at animals we would cultivate on a large scale basis. livestock, chicken, pigs, cows. So those are some examples of renewable resources, right? Okay. Now, sitting here and thinking about these resources that you've mentioned over the duration of the class, why would you say they're important to humans? What is the importance of natural resources to us? Go ahead.
Then because if it wasn't for natural resources, we would have been stuck in like the storage.
So if it wasn't for man using natural resources, we would be set back in time.
No, we would have been stuck. Set back in time. Stay.
I said set back.
Oh, set back.
Go ahead. Natural resources helps us to make us better than we are. Helps us to improve.
Miss, if it weren't for natural resources, humans wouldn't be alive.
That's correct. So natural resources keeps us alive, okay? And it helps us to improve. So that's your next heading. The importance of natural resources. The importance of natural resources. So before I give you what I believe are the important factors of natural resources, I would like you to write 5 sentences on why natural resources are important in our daily lives. Write 5 sentences on why natural resources are important in our daily lives.
It was 5 months, 5 sentences.
5 sentences. So I'm giving you 5 minutes to do so. So after your 5 minutes is up, I'm going to give you my reasons, and then the 3 first persons I'm calling up: Tequila, Anna, and Diana. Right? They're going to stand and they're going to read to us what they would have written on this activity.
This is the atmosphere count as a natural resource.
So, will you say the atmosphere is a natural resource?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's broken now, I thought we were here.
So remember, don't get it confused. Natural resources, they're resources that happen naturally, right? So we really have no influence on the atmosphere to help fix. Well, we do help fix it.
Like nature would fix it.
Nature would fix it. So it's a natural resource, but it's up to you to decide if you would put it as a renewable or non-renewable resource, right? But it is a natural resource. 5 sentences on the importance of natural resources. So you're discussing why natural resources are important in our day-to-day lives, right? What do they help us improve? You understand that?
This I think it does, but does gravity onto the natural resource?
Let's keep it simple. Let's look at natural resources we find here in Guyana, right? Don't get too complicated with atmosphere and gravity, etc. All right? So the three of you at the back, you're going to tell me when you're ready to share. Who's volunteering to go first? Well, Anna, you're going to come to the front and read first, right? Not to the front, to the center of the class. Diana, Tahila, how far are you? I'm giving you 5 more minutes to wrap up. Speak up. Okay. Anna, you're finished? So you'll go first and then Anna will go after, right? Come to come to the front.
Natural resources are essential and very important to our lives. Some resources like water and air are very important to keeping us alive and well. While minerals like gold and diamonds improve our daily lives.
All right. So class, how did you feel listening to that paragraph? Do you do your sentiments align with what she has written? Yes, kind of. Well, you will go after Anna so we can hear what you have.
Natural resources are important to humans because it keeps us alive. If it wasn't for natural resources, there would be no oxygen on the face of Earth. Natural resources happens naturally in order to help humans live. Without natural resources, there would be neither air nor water. Natural resources help improve in the everyday life by keeping everything fun.
Okay. How do you feel about that? It was very fast, right? She was racing. Well, what could you have picked up from that? So I got a gist that she was trying to say that natural resources help us live. Do any of you agree with that? Come, let's hear yours.
Natural resources are one of man's most important things. Man used them to build Guyana into what it is today. They are important because without it, we would not be alive. And if we were alive, we would have been stuck in the Stone Age.
Very good. So do you agree with that? Why so? I see a lot of yeses. Okay, so we're going to take. Well, yeah, so we're looking at how natural resources impact human life, right? So, how would you say it impact human life? Tequila will go last. Come up. So, read to us what you have. Okay, Tequila, that's the one to go, but Diana will come up and read. Which one of you would like to go? If you don't choose, I will call. Good. So Tehila will wrap us up on the importance of natural resources.
Natural resources are very important because without them, we would not be alive. Natural resources help us to our communities to function properly. Without natural resources, our societies would crumble and not would be in danger. That is why natural resources are
All right. Very good. She gave us some very good reasons. Do you agree with them? Okay, so before we wrap up today's lesson, I would like for at least a few persons to tell us one important thing they learned today. Who would like to go? Let me get someone who hasn't spoken. You. Yes. So the important thing that you learned today is natural resources help to keep us alive. Go ahead. We cannot survive without resources. Anyone else have? Good. So we have the two different names, renewable and non-renewable, go by. Do you have anything else to add? Any questions before we wrap up today?
Miss, you know what's the process in which sun and use its sun?
Okay, so here's what we can do. I don't know the process exactly, but next week we can watch a video on how sand is formed. Is that okay for you? Or you can even go home and do your own research and come next week with a presentation. Hansraj, that's what I would like you to do. It's just going to be a small, maybe a minute or two on the process of how sand is formed. Okay? So that is for next class. Last question. Yes, it depends on what kind of energy we're looking at. What energy do you have in mind? Wind. We're not going that scientific. So here's what you can do. You're so interested in it. Next week, you're going to do a presentation on what kinds of energy are renewable or non-renewable. Okay? It's just something short. Go ahead. You can form pairs to do the presentation next week. Right? The persons who want to do the presentations next week, I'll give you an extra 5 marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You have your questions to ask. So any questions you have at the end of class, come prepared next week, and I have half an hour to do a mini presentation. So listen. Limit 4 per group. Okay, and you'll get 5 marks. All right, so thank you guys for participating in today's lesson. You may be excused to break. Go ahead.